Now, for those of you people that haven't heard or read, the Dragon Bones update is already out for the PC version, but in February the 27th, it's going to come out for the console versions as well. So, I'm already excited to fight those dragons, which are basically reanimated dragons, but you're still technically fighting dragons. Though I would appreciate it more if I were to fight like live dragons, especially the ones from Skyrim. Though technically I kind of fought these dragons, which are basically demonic, called the Titans, but I won't count that. Now, although I am excited for the Dragon Bones update, I do have concerns for these updates within that free update. Well, except for the DLCs, because they're not free. And my concerns are mostly focused on the combat and gameplay and the classes. So I'm mostly concerned about the classes, especially for the Nightblade. Like myself, I play as a Nightblade, just so you know. So let me find that concern. Alright. The combat balance. General. The area of effect abilities now deal full damage to all targets instead of having a damage penalty after hitting 7 or more targets. Secondary effects from those area of effect abilities that can stun, snare, or whatever, are still capped at 6 targets. So my secondary ultimate ability is capable of hitting only 6 targets. That's it. It does not say, the information does not say how many targets you're able to hit. It just says like you're only able to hit nearby enemies that are within your radius. If I'm able to hit nearby enemies within my radius, why am I able to only hit 6 of them when I know that there are like 10 of them near me, and I can actually hit 10, but really I'm hitting 6, and the 4 of them are fine. Why is that? And yes, I am able to stun them. So that's a problem, because my Soul Tether can stun enemies nearby. Not all enemies though, like the bosses or whatever. Okay. Now the cast time and interrupts. Oh, and the movement speed. The reduce of movement speed penalty while casting or channeling an ability from 50% to 25%. So the movement of speed penalty is reduced to 25%. Now honestly, it does not really make of a difference for me, because excuse me, you are still moving slow, but it's reduced by 25%. However, there are some skills, abilities that are accepted. That are still the exceptions to this rule, and you're able to move at full speed. And these are, but are not limited to, uppercut, punching strikes, etc., and some ranged abilities like the rapid fire. Now, I think the rapid fire is an ultimate ability for your bow. Yep. Shame is a shame. because I actually do use a bow and arrow, but I don't use the ultimate ability, Rapid Fire. What else? When an ability is interrupted, it is now put on to a 3-second cooldown where it cannot be used. Now, honestly, seriously, I think I'd rather be interrupted and stunned for 3 seconds than have my abilities be set on a cooldown for 3 seconds so I can use them again. I mean, you're still able to use those abilities that haven't been affected by this. And that's supposed to bring up more tension towards the victim like me. Now, the exceptions are, but are not limited to, the uppercut, puncturing strikes, etc., ultimate abilities, soul strike, rite of passage, and heavy attacks are still exceptions to this rule and cannot be interrupted. Now this is only affected onto the PvP, not PvE. Just keep that in mind. Now this actually disappoints me. The soul strike and the rite of passage are unable to become interrupted from this. That's unfair for me, to be honest, but I guess that's how life is. Life is unfair. Anyways, what else? When a cast, time, or channeled ability is interrupted, you will be staggered, stunned, and set off balance. After that, you gain crowd control immunity. But isn't that, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that already a thing in this game? Well, it doesn't last forever. Yeah, I have a feeling that it's already in the game. Okay. You will now see the red interruptible telegraph on enemy player characters if they are casting or channeling an interruptible ability and are not crowd control immune. Oh, my food just ran out, but who cares? I'll eat my food later. Now, really, you don't... Now, really, you're literally exposing your opponents, PvP opponents, as a way for the other opponent to hit a strike onto that opponent. Like, I'd rather not expose, I'd rather not have my character exposed. I'd rather figure it out so I can, you know, have that advantage. Now, these synergies. Remove synergies from the global countdown. It can now be activated while using other abilities. So, in order to use synergies for the Dragon Bones update, you have to use other abilities to use that synergy. Like, why would I even need that? The cooldown for each individual synergy is 30 seconds from 20 seconds. Huh. I guess that's kind of a good thing. Well, honestly, I'm not worrying about the synergies right now, so let's move on. Okay, now to block cost, and this is one of those things that... Hold on. Sorry. Now, this is one of these updates for the Dragon Bones that actually got me concerned. Decreases the base cost of block from 2160 to 1730. So if you were a tank, you would continue to block against PvE and PvP more often, and you would not lose as much stamina. And that opponent is wasting all that stamina and magicka against that tank, and that tank has a chance to finish off that opponent because he or she had used up all of his or her powers. Now, I as a Khajiit Nightblade am a stamina user. I rely on stamina and nothing else. I have about 30,000 stamina points, which is kind of enough for me, but if I were to fight a PvP tank, then and if that tank were to block, he would not, that tank would not lose all that stamina, but I will. And that's actually a disadvantage for other opponents, because you're actually making stamina users that just want to play as tanks stronger. You're making these guys stronger, and you're making others weaker. Okay, let me read this. Jewelry enchantments that reduce the cost of block are now subtracted from this base cost first. Then percentage reduction to the cost block are applied. This means stacking jewelry enchantments and block cost reduction passives will now be less effective than before. But still, that doesn't make much of a difference. Let's move on. Now, the heavy attacks and off balance. Using a heavy attack against an off balance enemy will now consume the off balance debuff if the enemy is successfully stunned. What? This means that using a heavy attack against an off-balance boss enemy will not consume the off-balance effect, as bosses are immune to crowd control effects. Okay, I know that, but this new behavior applies to the Power Lash ability. You can use Power Lash on an enemy until the off-balance expires or is consumed. So that Power Lash is basically a secondary attack for the Whiplash if you play as a Dragon Knight. Using a fully charged heavy attack against an off-balance enemy will now restore double the amount of resources. Now this only works if an off-balance enemy is if an enemy is off-balance. If you use a fully charged heavy attack on the opponent, you are granted double the resources, stamina or magicka. If you're a stamina build, then you earn double the amount of stamina. If you're a magicka build and you use a staff, then you earn double the amount, but that's only effective if your enemy is off balance. Boss enemies can only be set off balance once every 15 to 20 seconds. So when an enemy boss is offset and I'm off balance and it expires, you have to wait 15 or 20 seconds. What? I guess that makes it a little bit tougher, I guess. Now for the classes, and this is something that actually concerns me more. In fact, I guess it concerns me the most, especially when I'm playing as a Nightblade. So, Assassination, 1 skill. Teleport Strike, decreases the damage dealt by this ability and its morphs by approximately 13%. So, as you can see, I don't have weapons with me, but I can deal about 3,393 physical damage with the ambush. Now, I have my fist. Let me get out my weapons. So with a weapon damage, I'm able to deal 2,381 damage. Now let's look at the ambush. So with the ambush, with the dual wielding weapons, I'm able to deal 5,355 physical damage, and yeah, with the Empower, I can deal 20% by the damage for the next attack. So let me calculate that. Plus 20%. So if I use that ambush 2 times, again, after using it once, I am able to deal 6,426 damage. However, with the Dragon's Bone, that damage decreases, so minus 13%. So with the Dragon Bone's update, because of the decrease of damage dealt with the teleporting strike and its morphs, I will have only dealt with 4,658.85 damage. So that's about 4,659 if you round that up. With the Empower, 5,591. Now, this actually seems problematic to me because I, for one, am not the most damage dealing player in the Elder Scrolls Online game, but I'm not terrible, okay? And it's not just for the Nightblade, it's also for the Templar, which I barely even play as. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't think that the Templar is terrible. The Templar is no doubt one of the best, if not the best classes in this game. Now, for the Ajax Spear, the focus charge has its damage dealt decreased by 18%. At least 18%. You're making... Okay, this is to the ZeniMax Online. You're literally making these specific abilities weaker than what they need to be. Like, why would you do that? I'm not saying make them stronger. I'm saying that keep them the way they are. Now, for the two-handed weapon, if I can get to that. Now, I'll have you know I don't use two-handed weapons that much, but I only use them whenever I'm, like, you know, if I'm unable to use my old tactics, if I'm able to change my tactics. Anyways, decreases that by 11% for the critical charge. Now for the critical rush, decreases the damage bonus based on the distance traveled from 68% to 40%. Bull crap. Now the Stampede decreases the Duration of the snare applied to this morph for 4 seconds from 8 seconds. Oh, come on! At least the attack will always remain a critical strike. But even still, that's bullcrap. Now, one-handed shield. Now, I don't find that problematic for the one-handed shield because I don't rely on the shield. However, with the werewolf, that's another story. Yes, I am a werewolf. Do you have a problem with that? That's on you. You can hit on the werewolf all you want, but I've been a werewolf a long time ago. Decreases the damage dealt by 16%. The Magica duration, the Magica detonation. That's the Alliance War class. Excuse me. And that's only assault. Now, now that's for the Magica users, so I don't use Magica, like I said, because I don't really rely on Magica. Now, for the combat fixes and improvements. Okay, that's not my concern. Yeah, those are my concerns for the Elder Scrolls Online. Let me go back to my bow. Those are my concerns for the update of Elder Scrolls Online. You're making me a Nightblade weaker, and you're making the Templar weak as well. And not just the classes, the main classes for the Nightblade and the Templar, but also for the weapon classes. Two-handed weapons, one-handed weapon. That's bullcrap. And why not have the those players who use the Rites of Passage or the Soul Strike or the Radiant Destruction be off balance instead of like the rest of those abilities, like the lethal arrow or the snipe, which is a base form of that. You know what? No. How about have these channeling or cast time abilities make you more vulnerable because you will be set off balance, including the Rite of Passage, the Radiant Destruction, and all the rest of the other abilities that use channeling and cast timing. And you're also making us DPS and healers weaker when you're making the tanks slightly stronger, because I'm basically wasting all my stamina trying to damage the tank, because actually tanks are my biggest concerns. They're more problematic to me than healers because tanks can actually absorb damage, and my damage dealing basically does nothing because they're technically unstoppable. That's my problem with tanks. And I actually hate healers myself, but tanks are more of a problem than healers. Oh Christ. So those are my concerns for the update that is already out for the PC, but it's also coming for the console version. I hope ZeniMax changes these things and replaces them with something new that is slightly better than the other ones. So I'll see you again. Sayonara.